Thank you so much, Mr. Vikas. It's my privilege to address to a audience who are budding entrepreneurs and who are going to get into the most promising sector in this current scenario, that is the tourism and hospitality industry. But it was hit badly because of COVID scenario. But this sector is going to be the biggest, service provider, as well as it has got huge contribution in our GDP as well. So that is why the role of this sector is going to be very, very important in times to come, because over years our generations have changed. Even in India, if we see, not only the global travelers, we can also see that in India, the trend towards traveling and the preference towards spending time on hospitality and tourism and recreational tourism is increasing. So based on that, I would like to congratulate the team here for choosing a very good topic and giving me this opportunity to address all of you here. So the topic of my discussion would be about behavioral economics and what is its role in the tourism industry. Of behavioral economics. When I was thinking about this topic, so I was thinking on the basis that, where does behavioral economics really matter? If I pose you this question, that just think about that, where would this subject of behavioral economics would matter? So the basic idea is that behavioral economics will come into play or would be very, very important wherever we are dealing with human resources. Because human being is a resource who is taking a lot of decisions, and his decisions are governed by irrational thinking. Secondly, behavioral economics would be an important subject of discussion or thinking point wherever we are dealing with service industry, where there is no product which is being exchanged. So it is human to human relation which is being transacted. So in that scenario also, the role of behavioral economics will always become relevant. Thirdly, as all of you are travel and tourism and hospitality experts, so this industry also revolves around customer satisfaction. So whole of the tourism, travel and hospitality industry works towards satisfying, ultimately achieving the customer satisfaction. So once it is achieved, that itself, in the process of achieving customer satisfaction, in the process of dealing with consumer and customers, you will realize that you have to take care of the behavioral aspect of those consumers. Now, although you all belong to this industry and you would understand that what kind of travel and recreational expenditure, but I would just like to, from the behavioral perspective, I would like to touch upon these points, that travel and tourism and hospitality and recreational expenditure which people would make in India or anywhere, it is one kind of expenditure which is not mandatory. And it is, so there are certain features which I'm going to talk about, which are the realities of this particular sector. So travel expenditure is not a mandatory expenditure in anybody's monthly expense list. It can always be postponed. And if we talk about Maslow need hierarchy theory, you will find that safety, the basic needs come at the lowest level and the self-actualization needs comes at the top. In between that, travel, recreational activities doesn't find an actual place, but people who reach to the self-actualization level, or once you have covered your safety needs, then those people start spending on travel and recreational kind of expenditure. Now, there are a lot of people, if we generally talk about human psychology, every human being would like to save some amount of money or some amount of days out of his busy schedule of office for vacation. But it is always possible that there are other important things which come up in between, where if you have kept any fund saved for the purpose of holiday or vacation, that can be always used for something else. So keeping in view these dynamics, the amount of money which somebody would allocate to the travel expense or the holiday expense can is always very subjective and is always very floating. So this makes tourism and tourist industry a complicated relations, because we all sitting here are entrepreneurs or are looking for ventures to start with travel industry. We need to understand that, what is going on in the background, in the mind of the consumer, how we can attract our consumer so that he ultimately, if he's saving money for holiday, he's actually able to spend it on holiday. How that gap can be shortened, then only the business in this sector will flourish. Then if you see today's scenario, social media influence is too much. If we talk about Generation Z or the millennial generation, they are very much influenced by the social media. And over these years, last 20, 30 years, we can see an upsurge of travel and tourism and hotel industry, or the recreational expenditure which people are incurring nowadays is much more than what people were incurring who belong to Generation X, or the generation of our parents or our grandparents. They were not spending any money on travel and tourism, or their expenditure on travel and tourism was very low, and it was a thing of upper middle class or upper class of India who was only going for travel, holidays, and moving around the country here and there, or government employees going for LTCs and such kind of thing. But nowadays, today's reality of the millennials and Generation Z is that they are so much influenced by social media that they are, whenever they get any time, they would like to travel. They would post their pictures of visiting some restaurant, food wars are there. So people are posting that what they have cooked, what they have eaten, and which is the best restaurant for what kind of things, which are the, so they would post their Instagram boomerangs. So all of these things by looking at each other. So it's kind of a competition which has started in millennial and Generation Z, which has motivated and which has led to so much of growth and development in this travel industry in India especially. And another important feature of travel and recreational expenditure is that whenever people are traveling or they are spending time on holidays, during holidays, it is all about developing a bond with loved ones, improving your love relations, improving your relationships. It's all about happiness. Even we have seen that there is so much of upsurge in solo travelers, friends traveling in groups. So all of these realities, all of you understand, but one needs to look at all this before we talk about what behavior, dynamics happen in tourism industry with these people. Other features of tourism industry relate with that the consumer, which we assume is rational, has irrational behavior as soon as he land up into holiday or as soon as he get into tourism and he's traveling around. So there is an imbalance between tariffs, resources, then there are irrational actions of tourists. You have to, as a person from a tourism industry, as a service provider, you have to do a lot of negotiation with the clients. It affects your overall cost of services. And in tourism industry, another feature very important is that for tourism sector, you have to plan in advance the areas for which are upcoming in the next season, which are interesting for people who would like to go for those options and offers. They are surprising, and you are meeting the expectation of your clients in the coming season, because everybody would like to go to a new location, everybody would like to visit a new hotel, would like to avail a new kind of service, would like to try new kind of dishes, because they have to show that novelty to others and create that kind of envy and create that kind of first mover advantage feeling with themselves. So you will find that irrationality or partial rationality will exist with consumers in this sector, as well as when service provider is dealing with those consumers. And it is very difficult for the service provider to predict how the tourist will behave. What will happen to his willingness to spend? Initially, when a client comes to tourism industry service provider to buy anything, his perception about the industry or his perception about the product, the service he wants to consume is very, very different. By the time he will return from that trip, or by the time he is already visited and enjoyed the facilities of that hotel, you do not know that what kind of impressions he is carrying about. So any consumer, anytime in this industry is influenced by memories he is carrying, first impressions he could make, experiences, emotions, what conflict he had in his mind between the cost and the value which is delivered to him. And consumer ignorance is another thing which can be affecting all of these. So all of these are realities of the consumer, and the service provider has to deal with all of these things. When we talk about the consumer who's coming to the travel, tourism, recreational industry, he is somebody who's taking impulsive decisions. He would take snap decisions as compared to cognitive, well thought of decisions. And you will find when some deals are happening in the travel and tourism industry, it is between those clients maximum who would quickly, click and quickly take any kind of service. But these consumers also behave irrational because they have a feeling of missing out. With this internet and all of this Googling and information available all around, a consumer would always feel that he has always missed out some alternative choices which were there and which he is not able to avail. There are preferences which keep on changing. You are satisfied with the destination which you have visited, but you have not liked the hotel, or you have not liked the service, you have not liked the excursion trips, or you have not liked something else. So that will define the overall satisfaction of the consumer. There are side factors like personal experience, what other people are saying, how people are commenting on your pics on Facebook, Instagram and other social media, and what kind of reactions you're getting from them in terms of when people are interacting with each other after they have come out from the trip. Then we need to understand that from a service provider perspective, because you people are going to be entrepreneurs in this sector and want to start up businesses in this sector. So as a service provider, what kind of challenges or what kind of realities you have to look at, what perspectives you need to ponder upon. So one very important perspective is the economic perspective, that what kind of product or service you are going to have, what would be your pricing, how would be your pricing be different. So all the marketing piece you have to be careful about. You have to design your product in such a way that you have product discrimination, you have product differentiation, and you are launching a product which is different in other ways. So all of these economic aspects, how would be your employees and how much would be your cost of delivering the service, per unit cost, per client cost, and all of these stuff. You have to look at that, which social and demographic sector you are going to address, which age group would be your target age group, which social sector you would be targeting, solo travelers, you would be targeting family, big families too, you would be targeting at group trips, you would be targeting at what kind of client and clientele, you would be targeting at supply chain of just like Deepak, he was there as a part of the supply chain provider in this as a service provider. Then what are the political scenarios in that country, like in the right now situation where there are lockdown at various places, where some places are not supportive for opening up of tourism sectors. So you have to look at the political aspects as well. You have to look at the technical and technological, because nowadays, as Deepak already discussed, that technology, software, apps, all of these become part and parcel of your whole this scenario. You have seen so many hotel websites, so hotels have their dedicated website. Then there are portals who are like Agoda, and you have Tripoto, and then there are other sites from which Make My Trip, Clear Trip, and all of those stuffs are there, where you can you have to look at that which is providing you the best kind of service. Who are your employees? What strengths your employees have? What are your core competencies? You need to work on that. You need to look at that aspect at the time when you're starting up your venture and as a service provider. From the consumer's perspective, you have to look at various things. You have to look at when a consumer is planning a trip or traveling, or is looking at the this expenditure. So he has to look at his income, how much a person earns a month, how much is his saving, what kind of expenditure he has to incur. So there are some compulsive expenditure which one has to incur. After that, where does vacation expense or holiday expense or going out for a movie or going out for dinners or going out for weekend getaways or such kind of things. So how do you look at, how as a consumer you look at those aspects? How much you think that you can afford to save for a holiday? Do you go for a holiday every month? You plan for a holiday every quarter, every year, or half yearly, or once in 2 years? So what is, at what stature you are, you have to look at. Then you have to look at your social status and family status, which class you belong to, what kind of family group you are. You are a big family, you are a small family, you are a nuclear family, you are a solo traveler. How much importance you want to give to your traveling thing. What kind of social media exposure you have. What is your age group? Are you too much influenced by social media and how much pictures your friends have posted? How much you are influenced by some influence marketers in terms of your exposure to these travel sites and travel experiences and public opinion? Do you seek for public opinion? Are you craving for that kind of attention which you want from people? Irrationality in your behavior. Do you feel that you have some sort of, as a consumer, one needs to understand that what kind of irrationality a person has? Do you have impulsive buying behavior? Then one needs to look at that, you need to control it. You need to look at that, okay, whenever I'm taking any decision, I'm taking it, it's a well thought of decision. You have to understand the perception and behavior about the economy and look at the influence of external environment on your decisions. As a consumer, when you are dealing with spending money on holidays, spending time on holidays and looking at this. I would not like to devote much time on this slide because all of you have already discussed so much on, and you know the realities of this industry. But the overall demand in this sector is expected to grow at a rate of 6.7% by 2029. And India has become a huge tourist spot. Government will try to develop 17 iconic tourist sites in India into world-class destination as per Union Budget 1920. Then there are Swadesh Darshan, there is Brand India, and there are a lot of other themes on which we are trying to develop World Heritage sites, trying to work on religious tourism, medical tourism, eco-tourism, and wellness tourism. So India is actually trying to look at developing this industry so much, because this can be one sector, because India has got a lot of rich flora, fauna and cultural diversity which we can work upon when we want to. So this makes us clear that okay, till now where we have reached is that tourism industry has good and bright future to have, and there will be a huge demand of entrepreneurs in this sector. The entrepreneurs need to look at, because it is a service industry, you are directly dealing with customer satisfaction, you are directly dealing with looking at how from the starting point till the end point and till the time you get your new business, you are dealing with how you are going to get new clients and get good clients. So it's all about human behavior. That is why for tourism industry, behavioral economics has the maximum utility, and one needs to look at this subject in totality. Why behavioral economics should be linked to tourism? There are two aspects which I would like to focus here on. Tourism should be linked to behavioral economics because it has got a bright future. As I've already discussed, it is going to be a big contributor to GDP, and there's going to be a big boom in this industry. Second aspect, why behavioral economics should be linked with this sector is because tourism is one industry which has got huge carbon footprints. The impact on environment by the tourist, by the tourism industry is so much, is leading to global warming, is cause of concern in such beautiful cities of the world which are untouched by other industries and other sectors, but tourism is spoiling those places. So tourism is affecting badly the carbon emissions, global warming, and it is leading to, right now our tourism sector is exploiting the nature and is not moving towards the sustainable tourism direction, but that is the need of the hour. And many of you who are going to be entrepreneurs or who are looking at starting up some entrepreneurial venture should look at sustainable tourism as one big challenge and as one big industry where you can develop something, or you can have a startup for yourself. Now I'll come to my subject, that is behavioral economics, after discussing that why it is important for you people to study this subject. Behavioral economics basically is economics. We are looking at behavioral aspect of economics. Why economics? Because economics is a subject which deals with human beings, which deals with whenever decisions are taken by human beings, and integrating decisions taken by human beings by optimizing their choices and integrating their psychology and sociology and cognitive and emotional factors that affect those individuals is what makes this subject very interesting. So Herbert Simon has given a very typical definition of behavioral economics. Herbert Simon, if you are an economics student or you have studied management or commerce at some stage, you would know Herbert Simon has given bounded rationality, and he has given various theories in economics. He has talked about behavioral economics. He says that behavioral economics appears to be a pleonasm. What behavioral economics can, we contrast with it. What non-behavioral economics can, we contrast with it. He gives this answer to this question by saying that the answer to this question is found in specific assumptions about human behavior that are made in neoclassical economic theory. So as we all understand, economics is study about behavior of people. So he says pleonasm means that it is a redundant phrase. So behavioral economics, he says, is a redundant phrase. Why he says it is a redundant phrase? Because economics itself is study about behavior of people. It is study about behavior of people, behavior of firms, behavior of industry, behavior of society, behavior of companies, whenever some decisions are to be taken. So whenever there are scarce resources and we want to optimize our decisions, it is economics which is playing the role. So that means economics is nowhere unlinked to behavior. But yes, people have forgotten that the behavioral or the psychological aspects of human being that can affect those behavior. Because till now what we know about neoclassical economists, they have said that economics is all about optimizing the agents, that is people, firms, companies, society. They try to optimize, they try to maximize their utility, maximize their output, maximize their whatever they are doing, they try to maximize. So we take always some assumptions in economics which are rejected or which are criticized, because in economics we assume that man is a rational man. But in behavioral economics we say that man is irrational. Why man is irrational? And we do not say that the history of behavioral economics does not start from very recent, but it is decades old, it is centuries old. As an economist, Adam Smith also have talked about overconfidence, loss aversion, self-control. Keynes have talked about behavioral finance in 1936. Pareto has said that all these are big economists, so they have also talked about that everything is psychology. But this field has gained a lot of importance after 1992, when Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky got Nobel Prize for giving prospect theory in behavioral economics. So they got Nobel Prize, and now in 2017, Richard Thaler has got the Nobel Prize. Mere statement has explained behavioral finance or economics as that people in standard finance are rational. They are not confused by frames, they are not affected by cognitive errors, they do not know pain of regret, they have no lapses of self-control. But people in behavioral finance or behavioral economics, which we talk about, may not always be rational, but they are always normal people, just like all of us. They are confused by frames, they are affected by cognitive errors, they know the pain of regret, and they have difficulty of self-control. Now, behavioral economics is important because whenever we are taking decisions, our decisions are never free from biases or errors. Behavioral economics help us understand consumer behavior better. It helps us understand individual biases and emotions that people deal with when they are taking decisions. So, basic difference between economics and behavioral economics is economics says that man is rational, but behavioral economics says that man is irrational. Why do we consider that man is irrational? When we get up in the morning or when we start our new year, we always make some promises that these are my promises for myself. I will take care of my health, I will eat good, I will get up early in the morning, I will not get hooked to social media. So we make so much promises to ourselves, but then we do not make up to those promises at the end of the day or at the end of the year. And a lot of time it happens that we know that we have got money to spend on something important, but we try to spend it on, let's say, eating out or going on for a party or going on or spending time with our friends. So we sometimes take unimportant decisions, do not optimize always. So that is why man is irrational. What Daniel Kahneman has said, he has said that we have two parts of our brain, left brain and right brain. Right brain talks about, so behavioral economics deals with that the brain is divided into system 1 brain and system 2 brain. System 1 brain, they have defined it as, is our right brain. It is automatic, it is quick, it is irrational, it is taking emotional decision, it is fast, it is frequent. So our right brain or our system 1 brain operates so fast, it is based on rule of thumbs. It is based on, for example, if you know how to drive, so do you have to think while driving? If you're going every day from your office to or from your college to your home, do you need to think about that what is the way of my home, or do you need to look at the map? No, it is your system 1 or right brain working. It is your reflex actions which tell you that okay, you have to take this right turn or left turn, or this is how you have to change gear in your car, or this is how you have to take control of so you don't have to even think for a second. So a lot of decisions in our life we take without thinking for a second, and we take quick decisions. So it is system 1, it is our creative brain which is working at that time. It is our subconscious brain which is taking decisions at that time. And then we have a system 2 brain which is calculative, which is conscious, which is slow, because it is based on logics. It takes decisions based on logic. It is a conscious brain. It will always look at the alternative, choose the best alternative and take a decision. So many are times when we are sitting in a restaurant and we feel like eating something, it is our impulsive brain, it is our creative brain, it is our subconscious brain which tells us that okay, I want to try this new dish today. Or impulsively we try to buy something on online shopping apps, or we try to buy something on, let's say when we are booking on a hotel, then sometimes we do system 2 kind of thinking, where we are spending a lot of time evaluating one hotel, two hotel, comparing them and then deciding, and then we end up taking no decision at the end of the day. But there are certain people who will take a quick decision. As soon as they think that they have to book a hotel, whichever hotel comes first or whichever brand they have, they have some association with, they will quickly book that hotel. So that is what, again, in this slide we are showing that brain, system 1 brain is intuitive, involuntary, there is no effort which is required, it is quick, it is like a hair, but the system 2 brain is slow, it requires effort, it do a lot of analysis, analytics, it requires patience to take decisions with system 2 brain. So what do we say that, what do we mean by rationality? Kahneman has very beautifully explained rationality in his book Thinking Fast and Slow. He said that only test of rationality is not whether a person's beliefs or preferences are reasonable, but they are internally consistent. A rational person can believe in ghosts as long as all her other beliefs are consistent with the existence of ghosts. So rational mind always confirms whatever is in his mind. A rational person can prefer being hated over being loved, so as his preferences are consistent. Rationality is logical coherence, reasonable or not. So these are the people who are major contributors in behavioral economics. Okay, Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky got Nobel Prize in 2002, and they gave the concept of prospect theory. Robert Shiller got Nobel Prize in 2003 for behavioral economics revelations, and then Richard Thaler got Nobel Prize in 2017 for giving a very popular nudge theory and the concept of mental accounting and loss aversion. Now let's talk about what is a traveler's behavior and why a traveler's behavior is irrational. So what happens when we are starting, let's say a weekend comes, or when we are going on a holiday? Even if we are a disciplined person, we are a very self-controlled, self-conscious and environment friendly, or you are a different kind of personality as a human being. But as soon as you unwind to your weekend, or you are planning to go on a holiday, you lose control over our own behavior, because people want to break their routine. So whenever a traveler is going out of the house, going out of their city for looking at different places, even disciplined people, they lose control over themselves. So you will, if you are very disciplined, like you have a well-planned day, you get up early, you go to office, you come at a specific time, you have lunch at a specific time, you sleep at a specific time, you will see that whenever you are on a holiday, your routine changes. So that is one very important. So that means irrationality as soon as your trip starts, as soon as your weekend starts, as soon as you go out for leisure and recreation, you are a different personality altogether. Your rationality and your, you will behave very opposite or very different from what you generally are. So if you are always in a parent ego state, you will come to your child ego state, or you will not behave like, everybody is happy in a gala mood whenever you are going out for a party or a holiday or a staying out and such kind of scenario. Second important thing why people behave irrational when they are travelers or when they visit different places, because their environmental perception about different places changes. There are people who keep their own houses very clean, they will keep their cities clean, they will keep their cars clean, they will be very environmental conscious, they will be very conscious about keeping electricity buttons off, conserving water and all those environmental friendly things. But as soon as you reach to a different location, you go out for a nature track or you go out for some other kind of excursion trips, people start behaving, sometimes they behave nonsense, they do not look at protecting the environment. Because of that, there is a lot of carbon footprints, and which is a big issue in the travel industry right now. It happens because of endowment bias, and because of this perception that I am visiting this place once, I will never come back. So even if I am putting some trash on the floor, I am dirtying that place, or I am not conserving the nature in that place, it doesn't matter to me, because I'm not going to come back. But your home, you will be very conscious, because you have to pay the bill. And since you have already paid the price of coming to a location, you are staying in a hotel, you will not look at the electricity and water conservation and other aspects of using it in a sustainable way. So it is because of endowment bias, because things which are close to me, the things which I like, the things which I own, I would take care of those things much more than something which I have been using for just a day or two. And whenever we are on a holiday, our pleasure mode is on. So we do not want to take stress. We do not want to think about environment. We do not want to think about, people say that, okay, I would like to be, in a happy mood. I'll not think about all those things which I think on a daily basis. And I will be a spoiled sport. I will be somebody who's, a free bird, and I would like to enjoy as much as possible in these 2 days. And there's a very good quote which we also see, whatever happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. So that means a lot of people behave that they don't have any self-control. Do I have something which is being asked by anyone? Okay, now moving on further, what are the behavioral biases which I would practically discuss in brief so that you get a flavor of what behavioral aspects of. So whenever you are dealing with such clients, you see your client base, they are rational people when they are booking something with you, with the service provider. As soon as they reach to a particular location, they are enjoying those service, they behave irrational, and their irrationality increase more to a higher level. Their pleasure, their happiness, and all those other aspects of their emotional being play a much important role when they are taking any decision on that trip. So you as a service provider has to be careful while dealing with these people and has to mold their behavior in a certain manner, and you will be able to do that only if you understand what their behavior is all about. So these are some of the biases which specifically I think affect the travelers in travel industry and your customers in the travel industry. So they are affected by framing effect, collective conservatism. I'll discuss these one by one in little details. So our heuristics, that means a lot of people when they are on trips, they are on their system 1, which is system 1 brain, which is working. They are impulsive buyers, they are quick decision makers, they believe in shortcuts, they will make systematic mistakes and will not like to learn. So beauty about these heuristics and biases that if some people are affected by some of the biases, they will not even know that they are affected by certain biases. They will not know, and since they do not know about it, they will not like to learn from those mistakes which they make. So humans make systematic mistakes and do not want to learn from them. So one such effect is framing effect. You always must have seen that, on certain labels of any product like frozen yogurt. So if there are health conscious people, if you send a message that it contains 20% fat, it gives a different kind of impression to you. And if it says that 80% fat free, so anything which is like fat free, so any health conscious person would like to grab that packet or would like to buy it. So it is how you frame things, how you give your package or how you give your deal to a client. So framing effect refers to the way in which choice can be affected, the way it is presented to a person. So decisions in such a case tend to get affected by loss aversion. So the way you present something to your client, that sir, this and this is our package and this is our features, or any advertisement you are showing on a on any website. So if you're showing 2-3 advertisement of your packages which are available, so the perception and the way of presentation and the way things are presented, whether a positive frame is presented or a negative frame is presented, that will affect their decisions. For example, framing effect would work if you visit a hotel website and you are booking a hotel. You will find that they will show the initial price is very, very high, and then retail price they would show that it is 50% discount only for today. So this is how framing works. If they don't do that discounting thing, they don't show that discount, or then they don't show that this offer is only for tonight, only for next 2 hours. If you don't book it, you will miss it. And how many people are right now looking at this kind of offer? You will find that people will not be affected until and unless you do it in this way, and then they will quickly make a purchase decision. Second bias is collective conservatism. People try to behave conservative also. Indians are believed to be conservative in many ways. So collective conservatism is that when a group of people stick to some established patterns or stick to behave in a certain manner because they are scared of they do not want to land up into a wrong situation. For example, some people are very brand cautious. So once they have visited a hotel with a certain brand, next time they do not want to take risk with some other brand. They would like to book hotel with that brand or that chain of hotels only. Or if you're visiting, if you like McDonald's, you would like to visit McDonald's again and again because you know that you will never go wrong with their quality. So that is how collective conservatism works. So in that way also you have to look at that whether your client is conservative or not, and whether he's looking at things conservatively, he's scared of certain things, he doesn't want to take risk in certain aspects. So that if you understand that, then you will be able to remove this fear in your client. Another bias which affect the customers or travelers or clients is that status quo bias. People do not want to change let's say if they are attached to one service provider or one travel agent or travel service provider, every time they will book a travel package, they would like to go to that client only. They would like to go to that service provider only because of status quo bias. They do not want to change their status quo. They do not want to change their things, or whatever they have, it should remain as it is. So if some people have certain preferences, for example, people love their comfort zone. They are unwilling to move outside their comfort zone. So they need to be persuaded that gain of a change of their comfort zone will outweigh the potential losses. You have to, if you understand that your client is into a status quo bias or he doesn't want to get out of that comfort zone, you have to really showcase your product or your service in such a way to him that he is able to see that the gain is much more than the potential loss of changing his status quo. So study of past behavior becomes much more reliable than asking hypothetical questions about their future intentions. Suppliers have to provide a significant incentive to encourage that people should shift from one kind of behavior to another kind of behavior, because they would not like to change the status quo. Loss aversion is very, very important bias which a lot of people are affected by, and it affects us on daily basis. Loss aversion is that people want to avoid losses, because of which they end up making conservative choices. So in essence, people want to they would care more about avoiding regret. What happens that if we lose something, we are much more unhappy as compared to when we gain something. So losing gives us more unhappiness as compared to, for example, somebody misses a flight. The kind of unhappiness or the kind of sadness he will have would be much more than, let's say, the amount of money he has to spend on that flight was, let's say, 5,000 rupees, and somebody has missed that flight, and there are other aspects to it. So if he gets a offer from a company that, okay, he is getting one extra flight, the kind of happiness the person will have will be half as compared to the kind of unhappiness he will have if he will miss a flight. So that is why people are so scared of losing something that they become conservative, that they do not want to shift their status quo, that they do not want to get out of their cocoon, or they do not want to get out of their comfort zone in any way. They do not want to change their service provider, they do not want to change their flights or the company airlines which they work with. They do not want to change their apps because of the kind of inconvenience they have to use or face in doing that. So then if you understand that loss aversion is something which would affect every client, you have to go for some nudge aspects of some nudge effects which can change their behavior, which can actually motivate them to change over things. So so there was a study which said that 75% of business travelers said they would prefer to the safety of a chain hotel than getting into the fear of unknown they may have to experience when they will go out. So people are not aware that they are irrational. A lot of people do not even know that they are irrational, or they make such kind of mistakes, or they have such kind of strong preferences of likes and dislikes. That is why they are not able to change them. There are availability heuristic. Availability heuristic is that some people take decision whatever comes to their mind first, or whatever they recall first. So if they know that their friend has visited a particular city or a particular country, they would like to also go to that place only, because it is quickly available in their mind. There are people who are affected by a lot of us on daily basis. Like if you are in a happy mood on a particular day, your decision making style will be different. You will approve of a lot of things, you will buy, and you will be saying yes to a lot of things, as compared to the day when you are very sad, or you're very angry, or you have some kind of fear in your mind. So your emotion or mood does affect your heuristics or your decision making, or does affect the mistakes you will make. Then there is anchoring bias. A lot of people take decision based on the first piece of information. As soon as they will visit a website, they will see the first trip detail, or they'll see the first hotel, they'll be impressed by it, and they will quickly take the decision. They do not give a second thought to anything when they are taking decisions. So then this also becomes a bias, because then you have to deal with your clients in a different manner. Endowment bias also affect the travelers in a way that endowment bias is that the thing which I own, I would give it more importance as compared to something which is owned by somebody else. So, you know, some people boast about whichever trips they have gone, whichever hotels they have visited, because they have already experienced it. So they will say, you know, my trip, my experience of that city, my excursion, or my visit to that place was much more better than, or my experiences are much more better than your experiences, or they are much more valuable. And so this happens when people are attached to their ancestral properties or their inherited assets. So that leads to status quo bias, that leads to loss aversion. So they are so much sticky to their own decisions, to their own things, that they will not look at the value which other objects or other things. And this works when we talk about the environment or the sustainability of a tourist who's traveling. So you give so much weightage to your own house, cleaning your own house, keeping your things so clean, prim and proper, and keeping your electricity bills, your water conservation, and keeping your environment green. Everything you do only in your area. You do not want to conserve others' place. You do not want to, you behave nuisance when people travel at other places and they throw trash and they affect the people living around in that area badly, or they would spoil the hotel stationery or whatever things are available over there. Self-control bias also is affecting a lot of people around. Now, self-control is how much you are able to control yourself whenever you have to take a decision. So a lot of people do not have self-control. Like somebody says that, okay, I will do dieting tomorrow onwards, or I will start exercising from tomorrow onwards, but they don't actually do it, end up doing it. So a lot of people, they save money for trips, or they save money for retirement, but then they end up spending that money. So it affects your savings, your investments, not taking care of the environment, making wrong choices, or buying impulsively on different websites or online platforms. Mental accounting is something which also will affect this travelers and service providers in this industry, because mental accounting is that in our mental makeup we will try to divide our income and expenditure. So we have a certain income which mentally we have compartmentalized, and we'll try to keep it in different baskets. Then we keep our expenses. So how much money we allocate for expense. So somebody who has got mental accounting bias, he would not like to shift money from one bucket to another bucket, or one basket to another basket. So let's say if you have some savings in your utilities fund, you will not like to use it for vacation, or vacation fund will not be you would not like to shift it to some other. So in that way, then these people are these people are difficult to handle when you are trying to convince them apart from their budget. So whatever budget they have decided in advance to start with when they are booking for any kind of travel tourism options, they would not like to change it. So you have to deal with these people in a different fashion. Optimism bias also affects other. Being optimistic is very good, all of us know, but being over optimistic is not good. So that is how it becomes a bias. If you become over optimistic that wrong thing happens to others only, it will never happen to me. So you go to an adventure trip and you try to behave in a manner that you do not want to wear the safety guards, and you do not want to take care of others. And there are some people who will never plan their trips. They will say that, okay, wherever we will go, we will decide then and there. And because they feel that never anything bad will happen to them. Bad thing happens to others. It will never happen that when they will go out of a airport, they will never get a flight, they will never get a taxi. So they don't go for pre-booking things. They will never pre-book a hotel. They will say that, okay, I'll go to a place, I'll book the hotel then and there. It may be possible that it is a place where people are it's overbooked and there is no place for them to live. Now, what kind of solution behavioral out of these behavioral biases we can see for the industry? As a service provider, you should try to offer less number of options to people. I would like to, try to rush through because already I have crossed the time limit. Offer less number of options to your clients because giving them more options and more choices confuse them more. So it is better that you give them limited 2 to 3 options out of which they can choose. One should always try to give more details of the offer because this will satisfy a consumer in terms of that he has got enough information about a service and then he is good enough to take a decision. Try to make the offers to your client irresistible. You should always put something so attractive to your client that he should feel that he has to take a quick decision on it. And one should always try to give time limit by giving such offers on websites or other places that they try to book the services as soon as possible, and it creates an emotional urgency in their minds. And as soon as that happens, system one brain starts working and then their intention to purchase is much more as compared to other times. Adding free gifts, adding value, they would also add to urgency factor and will help the client get into a positive frame and they'll be able to take decision. One should always keep your options and offers given in a positive manner. And as a service provider, you should always look at doing such kind of providing such kind of nudges to your clients that they end up reducing carbon footprints and becoming more sustainable. So at the end, I think sustainability of this tourism industry, because it is unnecessarily affecting the nature in a negative sense, should be the main thing, and that can open a lot of business opportunities or entrepreneurial opportunities. And in a lot of ways, hotels and public places, you will find there are a lot of messages. So these messages are a kind of nudge that will get into a traveler's mind that, okay, I have to be positive, I have to be sustainable, I have to see that, I'm not badly affecting the environment, or my carbon footprints are really low. So ultimately, to summarize, I would like to say that you should not offer too many choices. Then as summarized, that payment timing options should be given, default options should always be there, and there should be something like, because a lot of people do status quo. So the things which you want that, it should come as a default option. So they like registration details of the clients should come as a default option. Pricing should be psychological pricing. You should always keep the pricing in that manner. So giving free offers and free things are always a good idea. Ethics and making sure that your reputation, you make a good rapport with your client. You look at the customer satisfaction at the end. So all of these things are very, very important when we are looking at how people behave and what perception they will carry at a later stage. That's all from my side. I'm open to questions with all of you.
Thank you, ma'am. I think it was a great, a lot of new things even for me, and I think for all of us. I think we don't understand, or we don't learn actually economics in the tourism. Although I have studied tourism, and all of the students studying tourism, hospitality, or aviation, we have accounting. I don't know new syllabus if they have some part, but it must be one unit. But definitely this gave a complete idea on you put a right example, which was really eye-opening for everyone to relate their business or others' business to the behavior economic as a subject.